So hello, good evening. I'm wondering if you can all hear me. So I was hoping that we can maybe invite you to open your cameras so we can see you, just to know who's there, where you're from, who you are. Feel free to put it into the chat. So I want to welcome you all to this session of Grief and Gratitude Can Coexist. Today is April 2022, and I hope that you have been finding these moments to really connect and recharge yourself, to really connect with the beauty and the essence of mindfulness, of really harvesting the collective energy of also these spaces. So I like to see you all, and in these last few weeks I've been getting the pleasure of meeting so many of you and speaking to you face to face and seeing you grow and develop in so many different ways. So I'm going to introduce some of the session and then pass you on to two fantastic speakers that I've had the pleasure of meeting in the last few weeks. So first I want to welcome all of you to this space. So every part of you, the seen and the unseen. So your abilities, your gifts, your disabilities, what we don't see, right? I want to welcome your gender, your sexual orientation, your color, your race, ethnicity, all of those things into this space that sometimes is not always necessarily welcomed into other spaces. So feel free to adjust your pronouns and your name so we know how to address you. People of color spaces represent a rich diversity of colors, of everything. But we like to really remember that we're here to lift each other up, to really make ourselves strong, not necessarily just to address the oppression and the systematic racism, but actually just to really lift each other up. Sometimes it's the kindness that actually goes a long way. It's the small things that actually really help us get through those days. So my name is William Fley, and I was born in the occupied territory of the Mayan Empire, Central America. This is where I was born, and I am a multicultural, multi-heritage person, and stand in solidarity against racism and oppression. This is really why we build the MNPC. So I also want to thank the African Health Policy Network, who has sponsored this event. So we're here thanks to their generosity, but also the generosity of the so many people who have put these events for so long now. For, gosh, we're heading into our third year as an organization. Yutundi in the background doing tech. There's Amani, who has been hosting quite a lot of events. Tash, one of our up and coming mindfulness teachers, and Rita. There's so many people here that I've so many friends, so many people I haven't seen and I want to meet. What else? I want to introduce, and I want to take my time doing this, so I'm going to read this slowly because they're very important people. So we have, I lost it, so I'm going to do it from memory. I'm going to do it from memory. So we have Hyacin Taylor, who is an experienced counselor and psychotherapist working with ADHD, with stress, with adult mental health. She's also a clinical supervisor. She also has trained at the OMC, Oxford Mindfulness Center, in MBSR, MBCT, and she's one of our first qualified Black supervisors in the UK. So I hope I got all that right. And then we got Sharon Brown, who's in North Carolina. So this is how international we've become. So Conscious Sharon, she is a social worker for the last 20 years. And she is a wellness advocate. She is a mindfulness and yoga student and practitioner. And so I hope I got that right too. So over to both of you. Thank you so much for listening. The sessions will be recorded for our YouTube channel, but I do welcome you to show yourself if you're able to. I know that there's a lot of Zoom fatigue, but this is a space for you. Do look after yourself in the space, and if anyone is suffering from any of the issues that we're going to be discussing today, please do reach out. Thank you.
So, excuse me. Thank you, William. Thank you for lovely introduction there and your generous, kind words. Thank you. Yeah, and also just to thank you for this opportunity, for putting this together, for bringing this space and this community together so that we can hold and support one another through these challenging and difficult times. And I know at some point it was mentioned as the first generation of POC mindfulness teachers, with lived experience of some of the challenges that this brings, particularly around loss, pain and trauma. We want to be able to just hold a space so people can share and honour the experiences of their loved ones that have passed, or for ourselves that experience trauma and pain. So just to say a bit about this evening's programme, we'll start with a grounding practice, and then I'll hand over to our friend and colleague from the US to take us through the stages of grief and some restorative yoga practices. And then we'll come back and we'll go into breakout rooms for a bit where we can share the stories of our loved ones, and Sharon will give more details on that. We'll come back into the larger space for time for sharing and reflections. And then at the end, we'll have more time for any questions, or if anyone wants some time where they may feel triggered, then we'll be available to offer that. So for now, I want to lead us through a meditative practice. I just really want to encourage you all to just turn your mics on so that we can, turn your cameras on so that we can see each other's face, just connect with each other on the screens. So just taking in each other. So just taking a moment to just notice who's on the screen. Okay. Okay, so maybe just finding your posture now, or your regular sitting position, just finding a posture that is upright, dignified, and comfortable. So I'm going to invite you to, you can either lower your gaze or close your eyes, whatever feels comfortable for you. So just taking a moment to settle into your bodies. Allow your shoulders to be relaxed. Relax your face. Just asking tech to just mute people as we surrender into stillness. Relax your forehead. Allow the eyes to be soft. Relax the jaw. Allow the face to be soft. And if you notice that there is any tension in the body, just allow that to soften. Bringing your attention onto the sensations of breathing. So just feeling where the breath is most alive for you. So right now there's nothing for you to do. And there's nowhere else for you to be. Find your stillness. And your place of calm. Coming into the body. So bringing awareness to the feet, connecting with the ground or the earth beneath you. The different body parts, connecting with the surface on which you're sitting. Holding the space around you in awareness. Maybe expanding that awareness to include the sounds in your own body. The sounds within your own environment. Expanding that awareness to include the sounds just outside your environment. not forgetting to breathe. Face is relaxed. And your mind and body has surrendered to stillness. So just beginning to just let go of anything that might be around for you right now. So any judgments, just let them drift into the background of your awareness. Any judgments about the practice, judgments about me or anyone else on the screen, just let them go. Let them drift. Stillness. So in a moment, and there's no rush, bringing your awareness back into the environment, opening your eyes, your full awareness and attention into this space, just as it is. So, okay. So how do we turn grief into strength? Part of this evening's practice. As we all know, part of life is about experiencing loss and grief. And often loss can be one of our biggest teachers about life and about what really matters. And it's when we turn grief and loss in onto ourselves is when we struggle. Anger, resentment, guilt, physical pain. So if we can learn to find equanimity between what we do, finding balance, we can learn to live a much fuller life. Letting go of the things that we find challenging or that we struggle with. Finding peace. So over time and across the globe, we've had to struggle with and find the strength to to sit with some real difficulties. The racism in Ukraine, the horrific and degrading treatment towards child Q, all of which can trigger us in lots of different ways. And what we aim to do this evening is to find a way to balance some of that. So try to move towards our grief with compassion, love, and warmth. So I'm just going to ask you to either close your eyes or lower your gaze while I read a poem. The time will come when with elation you'll greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here and eat. You will love again the stranger who was once yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself. To the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you have ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelves, the photos, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit and feast on your own life. Beverly's favourite poem. Thank you. So I'm gonna hand you over to our friend and colleague Sharon from the States to take us through a practice of yoga and some slides. So thank you. Sharon, over to you.
Thank you so much, Hyacin. We need to bring you back every week to do that body scan. Absolutely incredible. Thank you so much. So I'll just turn you over now, as Hyacin said, to Sharon Brown over in North Carolina. Sharon.
Well, thank you for all of that. Thank you. That grounding was just something that was needed. So I really appreciate that. And one thing that I would like to say, I'm very grateful for being here to be able to share the grief and gratitude coexist. And just to tell you a little bit about how it was created, I've kind of had a grief workshop in my mind some time back. But then once my mom had graduated from the earth plane, then it was time for its creation and to share it with the world. And so by having a more personal experience with it, it's a way to recognize her and then also to honor her, because she definitely has lived a fully lived life. And it's a reminder for me to ensure I continue that as I move on. So again, thank you for this space. And so what I like to do as well is to kind of start off with a poem from Helen Keller, and well, a quote, should I say. And what she says is, what we have once enjoyed, we can never lose. All that we love deeply becomes a part of us. And I'm going to read that last part again. All that we love deeply becomes a part of us. And so when it comes to anyone or anything that we lose, I guess you could say we don't exactly lose it because it remains with us within our heart. And for me, each time I read that, it just automatically, my hand just goes on my heart. And so when it comes to grief, one of the things that kind of comes up is like, what is the definition of grief? Sometimes there are certain words or things that may be used interchangeably. And first of all, I like to say there's no right or wrong. I guess you could say definition or answer per se. And so I like to hear from individuals, and when you think about grief, like what comes to your mind? And someone has said loss. And if anyone wants to speak, just let us know that as well. You're welcome to speak it as well.
Heartbreak.
And I'll go to the chat. And Karen had shared with us loss. And Candace, love. And then Mary, the 5 stages of grief. And then with Omni, learning to celebrate the moving along another chapter in the person's journey. And someone else says heaviness. Someone else says longing. And someone else says sorrow. And someone else says feeling like something is missing. And someone else shared heartbreak. And then someone else says longing, aching, missing. And someone else says no words. And with all of us, we all have different ways of expressing it and feeling it. And so I'm just going to read the definitions of loss, grief, bereavement, and mourning since I'm on my phone. And then looks like we got another response. Okay, can everyone hear me?
And a few people, if I may add, have just joined. So can I just invite you, just if you feel able to, just turn on your cameras and do speak up. If you need to say something, do ask questions, and this is your space.
Okay, and I just wanted to make sure people can hear, because someone has said that they weren't sure whether it's something on their end or not. And then someone else has said, missing the human presence of yet, longing for the spirit connections. And Valerie in the UK has said that. And yes, ooh, when I read that, I felt that one. And that is so true. That is so, so true. And so with the definitions, again, of loss, grief, bereavement, and mourning, with loss, it's the disappearance of something cherished, such as a person, a possession, or a pet. And so, again, it's, it can be that sense of where someone had transition, or it can be the loss of, or of a relationship or separation. And then when it comes to grief, and I believe this is the biggest part of it. And when I was reading through what grief means to you, I believe this is definitely where a lot of people are, which is it's absolutely normal, and it's multifaceted, and it's multi-level response to a loss. And so for everything that you feel emotionally, things that you think about, the physical sensations, things that you do behaviorally or don't do, and then the social components that come along with that. And one thing that I had noticed, like before my mom passing, and even, once she had transitioned, is the visceral effects, the sensations in my body. And what I've come to realize is that that's something that a lot of people don't talk about, but I also see is a lot of what people experience. And so as we're moving through this, that's one of the things that, I really want I invite you, should I say, to embrace, because it's a natural sensation that comes up in the body as we're living and releasing the emotions attached to that person. And when it comes to bereavement, it's the process of adjusting to the loss. So it's all the different maneuvers and things that we are going through as we are grieving the loss of our loved ones. And then when it comes to mourning, and that is a cultural construct response to grief, meaning that each cultural can have certain rituals or traditions. Like even, I know there's this person, um, I'm not friends with the person, but I am aware of that person, and I can't remember on her cultural, to be honest. But one of the things is that when they know someone is transitioning, it's like they begin the ritual while the person is still living, and so when the transition happens, it's like it's a celebration. Everything is in a celebration of it. Where in some cultural, in that, like unfortunately here in the US, it's not everyone, of course, but a lot of times we don't even talk about, how to prepare for it. And so I think that makes it even, that much more difficult as well, and that much more challenging, because just the thought of someone not being here can be overwhelming, understandably, very overwhelming. And so the next thing that I kind of want to just talk about, and someone mentioned it, is the stages of grief. And I like to kind of call them the experiences of grief. And the reason I prefer to use the word experiences is because sometimes with the word stage, it almost make it sounds like, you're going up or down or something, in which part of that is somewhat true, but then at the same time, for each person, there's not a one or a two or a five when it comes to that. So that's why I will kind of use the word more so experiences of grief, in which I understand when it was created and why it was created that way. And then the other part of it too is that sometimes you can have multiple experiences at the same time. And so when it comes to the stages of grief, and the other thing is too, over time, it was originally like 5 stages, but over time, I think last time I looked, there could be like 7 or 8 stages of grief where it's been updated or modified. So the one that I'm looking at is the 7 stages of grief. And so the first one is shock, the initial paralysis of hearing the bad news. And so for some individuals, this is where that freeze state can come in, or just being numb. And so it depends on the situation. Even if it's an experience where someone may have been ill, even still, just in knowing that that has come to be, it can still be a shock. And one thing I want to point out is that in all of these different stages, it impacts your body. Again, there's sensations that come through your body when you're shocked. And with a lot of times in society, it doesn't always acknowledge that. And so in comforting the person emotionally, it's also in comforting them physically too, in thinking about that. The other experience is in denial, trying to avoid the inevitable, in thinking that, or in saying, should I say, that it depends on, each situation is different, and that this just cannot be true. Not just being able to see what reality has. And then when it comes to the next experience is anger, and that's frustrating outpouring of bottled up emotions. And especially if at the time of someone passing or transitioning, there have been some unkind words, or if someone was, if the relationship was in a space where there was some separation or in connection. And so sometimes people may have some regret or feelings of something that they didn't allow themselves to have loving words for their loved one. And then there's bargaining, and that's seeking in vain for a way out. It's almost, especially when it comes to emotional pain. The other thing about it is that it produces the same chemicals as physical pain. So that's another reason that we feel it in our bodies as well. And then for some individuals may experience depression. And it's pretty much when it comes to that experience, it's the realization of that the passing has occurred. And again, as I'm going through this, some individuals may not experience any of these at all. And some may, move through one or the other or have multiple ones at the same time. And then the next one is testing, seeking realistic solutions. And when it comes to that, that can be, when they are making plans to move forward or seeing if something is really going to work out for them in dealing with the loss. And then finally, there's acceptance, finally finding a way to move forward. And again, for each person, it's a different experience. I guess that's why I like the word experiences instead of stages. And so again, when you're thinking about the definition of grief, it is, again, the emotional, physical, cognitive, and social aspect that it is on you, and the different stages of grief, and everything has sensations in our body too. And so what I would like to do is to invite you, if you want, to share a story, your loved one's story. And if you choose to do that, think about the connection that it has on your body, like any sensations that may come up too. And while you're, thinking about if there's, if you want to share your loved one's story, keep in mind that the role of the heart in completing the story is to express what you honestly feel. And I can start if that's okay. And then if anyone wants to follow me, I just want to make sure I give others the opportunity if anyone wants to go first.
I'm wondering, Sharon, about the breakout room. So maybe people can do it in smaller groups first before maybe, and then they come back into the main space. So people can also have an opportunity to meet each other. Wow.
Welcome back, everyone. And thank you for sharing your loved one's story in the breakout room. If there is anyone who wants to share something openly, you're welcome to do that. And as for myself, I would just like to share that with my mom, she lived a fully lived life. She was one of those persons, I would say, she won't give you everything off of her back, but she will definitely was a giving person. Like she wouldn't give you her last 2 cents because she have to make sure that she has 1 cent for herself. And so, but ensuring that too, that teaches us, in which one of my friends, I believe who's here as well, had reminded me that could be where I've gotten my self-care kind of first teaching. It's like, yes, we can help others, but make sure we're taking care of ourselves first. And even though, like throughout the years, she's had, lots of medical issues up and down, and she experienced just so many things. But despite all of that, she had a smile, always that get up and go. And the main things that I had learned from her was pretty much she taught me to use my words, to not hesitate in speaking up. And then she also taught me to um, think, feel, and say, what's on my mind. She definitely did in a nice way. She wasn't a mean lady or anything like that, because we know some people can use words, and not be so nice. And then she also taught me that I can do anything. And I learned that at a very young age. And as an adult, she will always remind me just how proud she is of me. And she always thanked, me and my brother for supporting her and helping take care of her, when that was needed. And so I just kind of wanted to share that, because again, in her honor, I just felt like that this space is needed to give others as well. And so, did anyone want to share openly? Because again, I really do think all of you who were able to share in the breakout room, and I just want to make sure I give that space to anyone who wants to share openly.
Hi, my name's Karen. Thank you for everybody who's doing this tonight. I was actually going to listen to this in the background because I'm studying at the moment, but I've stopped studying when we started. But not so much that I wanted to talk about the homegoing of my grandmother, but just to say that very grateful for hearing other people's stories. But what I notice is the hearing of people's grief. It reminds me of my grief. And at a certain age, especially, but any age, but at a certain age, you hear people, there's people experiencing grief more and more. And it just seems that there's just so many of us in pain and reminding us of our pain. But Derek was one of the people in our group, and he kind of not finished it, but it was a nice finish when he says that grief is not always negative. It can be positive, because in somebody's passing over or homegoing, there's some I know one of the things I noticed when we gave our grandmother such a lovely homegoing, that it was a homegoing which was put together out of love, because it was just so nice. And I remarked that if 1/10 of it was the love that we had for her, the impact that she had on us gave us the strength to give her such a lovely homegoing. The other 9/10 has got to be us carrying out her wishes of loving each other compassionately and living a life and her legacy. So that's what I'm really proud of, to be able to have had such a role model that I now want to base the rest of my life on her and do some of the things that she does. So it can be a positive thing, losing somebody as well.
Karen, can we see you, Karen? I want to see what you look like, please.
You can see me.
Okay.
It's a bit dark in here.
Thank you for sharing your life and your story. That's lovely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just about to say that as well. Thank you for sharing.
Hi, I'm Andrea from Charlotte. Actually, when the workshop first began, when I first signed in, the music triggered me. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay. I stayed, of course, and when we broke out, my two partners, they let me talk and they helped me soothe, because of course the tears started. I feel the tears coming now. I had my first loss at a very early age, and it was my dad. And it just seems like now I am an only child, and so now on both sides of the family, it's just me left. But what I wanted to say also is that this week, for the last 2 weeks, I have been participating in a meditation challenge. And some of the tasks this week was to write about your mom. And it's just, to me, I wasn't even thinking about this class as I was writing, but it was just, at the time, I as I was writing, what I was feeling was, my mom was the type person, she was a giver, she was a helper, all of that. And I see that I get that from her. But what my mom left at an early age. She had just turned 60. So I am just grateful for her life. Now, as I'm older, she's been gone like 20 years now, but of course, like today, it just seems like it just happened today. So I'm just grateful for this workshop, and I'm just grateful for my mom. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. And for all of you, who've shared in the breakout groups and in the larger group, again, thank you so much for sharing your loved ones with us. And so, as we have said before, that, when it comes to grief, we can feel it through our body, and there's a lot of emotions that come with it. And I have found that a lot of times the emotional sensations are not always addressed, and that sometimes we may even feel like that we can't grieve. And so this is where the restorative movement, or shall I say more so rest, can really be supportive in moving those sensations. And again, thank you, everyone for sharing your experience. And so we're gonna do a restorative movement or rest. And you're invited to leave your camera on or off. And with restorative, it is, in a sense, allow one to release emotions and to get into a deep rest. And you're welcome to use pillows, blankets, or bolsters if you like. And if neither one of those things aren't handy, that's okay as well. The pose that I chosen is child's pose. And one of the reasons that I chose child's pose is because it's a representation of being um, in our mother's womb. And for most of us, it's the most safest space to be. And so, again, you're welcome to leave your camera on or off as we go into a restorative practice. And before I would say, or as we prepare to go into restorative practice, let's take a deep breath. And just exhale that out. Another deep. Slowly exhale. And just one last time. And so, as we prepare for the restorative practice, again, you can be on the floor, you can be in the bed, or you can even be in a chair for this restorative practice. It's what's in your practice and what's comfortable for you. And so, if you're using a bolster or any pillows, you can place those things lengthwise on the mat or your floor in front of you. And then slowly lower your hands and your knees, placing them on both sides of the bolster or your pillows. And again, you can be lying on your bed, you can be on your bed or on your floor. And if you're sitting in a chair, you can grab a pillow and put it up against your chest. And if you're already familiar with this pose, you're more than welcome to place yourself into child's pose. Allow your knees to open wide towards the edges of the mat. The top of your feet. or flat on the floor behind you with your big toes touching. And for some, a blanket under your knees may be more comfortable. And you can fold your torso forward over the length of the bolster or the pillow. And if you're in a chair at this point, you will roll, kind of like roll forward. And as you roll over onto the bolster, allow yourself to relax. Make any adjustments that you may need. Allow the gravity to pull your legs and hips towards Mother Earth. And if you feel any tension in your body, slowly breathe in. And then on the exhale, focus on that tension. And if this pose is not in your practice, you're welcome to any pose that's comfortable for you. And make any adjustments that you may need just for comfort. And you're welcome to stay in this pose if you like. We're going to take a 5-minute break. And whenever you do come out of this pose, slowly lift yourself up. Slowly. And almost like slowly breathe in. And so you're welcome to stay in this pose if you like, or you can slowly get up and move around. And we'll go into a 5-minute break and then we will return.
So Sharon, will there be any more breakout rooms?
Say that again.
Any more breakout rooms?
Oh, one more.
Okay.
Okay, so just before we go for a break, just want to read a poem. Enough. These few words are enough. If not these words, this breath. If not this breath, this sitting here, this opening to life we have refused over and over until now. Until now. So we'll see you back in 5 minutes. Thank you.